One. And we are live for a new episode of the Electrek podcast. I am Fred Lambert, your host, and I'm joined by Seth Wintrow. How are you doing today, Seth?
I'm good.
All right, I hope you're ready because we have a lot of items to go through today, but we're going to go through a lot of them fast. It's a lot of not too in depth news. A few more interesting items later on to the show, so stay tuned for that. If you guys have any questions at the later part of the show, we're going to answer them live. So you can put them in the comment section right now and we can get to it. It can either be like a direct question or a topic you want us to discuss for this week. If you can do it in all caps, when it's an actual question, please do, and you can keep the conversation lower cap when you guys are just chatting between one another about what we discussed, because you're also welcome to do that, of course. All right, let's start with the version 4 of the Tesla mobile app. Was released this week, and it's a pretty significant update, especially in terms of the UI itself. So it's a full on UI refresh, and if you guys have been following us for the last few months, we've been saying that there's a big update to the Tesla app coming, and it's gonna emphasize users that are not necessarily Tesla owners. There's a lot of groundwork being done for that. This is like the big first step. There was a whole redesign of how Tesla handles the supercharger payment and history in the app, streamlining this whole experience right there. So this is the first step from when Tesla opens up the supercharger network to non-Tesla owners, and they're going to do that through the app too. So the app is going to become a big way to onboard non-Tesla owners into the Tesla ecosystem, and it's no coincidence that one of the big first step too, Tesla is bringing up the order process through the Tesla app, so you can manage your whole order process through there, which it turns the Tesla app more into a selling tool than a ownership experience tool like it used to be. And I mean the Tesla app has always been a very important part of the Tesla ownership experience. Of course, in some of the cars, that at some point it was the only option for keys, the Model 3, the Model Y. Of course, Tesla has since introduced the key fob in it. Well, I mean, there's always the key card, but that's obviously suboptimal. But yeah, now if we look at Seth and I were just discussing the app right before we went on, and we were discussing the comments from a designer friend who wasn't really happy about the update. But personally, man, I like it a lot. Like he had a comment that the font are a bit small. I would agree with that. The font are a bit small, but other than that, I really like the redesign. I really like the renders of the cars. If
Yeah.
you're a multi Tesla product owner like I am, it's very useful to just click on your profile and you see all your cars there are showing up. And if you have like said, you have Tesla Power Walls and shit like that, you can see that too. And I didn't on this one here. I don't have the actual. That's why I made another article about it this morning because I completely forgot about looking into the Tesla energy part of the app, because this is the complete new redesign for that too. And you can see it here, an example on the Tesla solar roof. But here are the statistic part is more what people are looking for here. You can see the flow of energy, but very similar to the previous design. But this is the completely redesigned data center for your energy product. I would call it. Is there an
hmm
actual name for that? Impact? No. Is it called Impact?
I think it's the menu items impact.
Okay. Um, yeah, it looks good. It looks clean. I found this example here, courtesy of Martin Coyle, where you see an actual Tesla commercial project. Then you redesign for the page too with the power pack. I don't think people see that often because there's not that many of those projects, and they
I
are
think
mainly.
I think if you're
Uh,
in California, you get to opt into the virtual power plant plan, the VPP or whatever,
mm-hmm.
from the app as well. I saw someone on Twitter had
Oh,
that
I'm
that
gonna go
option.
check that out. That could be interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's a significant redesign. Looks cool to me. The in terms of new features, it's not that heavy. You do for the energy side, you do have a one-click button to go off grid. Said you had a few example of where that could be, how that could be useful.
Yeah, you can if you're getting a new air conditioner installed, like I had recently, you can test to see if the batteries can handle the load by themselves. So when your power does go out, you've been fully tested. Also,
Hmm.
if you know there's going to be a power outage, maybe a storm, but
Hmm.
more likely, some work's being done on the lines, you can go off grid before that happens, so that your lap or your desktop doesn't power down, and all your clocks don't go haywire when the power does come off and you do switch over to uh, the island situation.
Yeah, not just a power company like doing work too, but in some places like in California, there's like planned brownouts and things
Yeah.
like that. Like these are becoming more and more common. And so, if your power company notifies you that it is coming, you can just go off grid, like you said. In terms of other feature, the widget they introduced the widget for on your lock screen or on your control screen, however they call it.
Hmm.
You can have a direct look at things like your is it lock on unlock, or you can actually toggle that too. Battery capacity, charging session, and all that stuff. That's I'm not a big widget user on my iPhone, but for those who are, this is going to be really helpful. Enhanced phone key support. Vehicle no longer needs to be selected. So this is a big deal for, again, multiple Tesla vehicle owners. You
Yeah,
don't
that's a
have
big
to.
one.
Yeah, you don't. For those people who don't know, if you have several vehicle, your app needs to be not open, but when it's open, it needs to be on the car that you are going to use, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but I mean, sometimes I get, because I have three cars on my Tesla app, and they all getting used by different people. Like I use my Model 3, my parents use my Model S, and actually I have Chris Payne using my Model X right now in California. Chris Payne, the director of Who Killed the Electric Car. And sometimes I get alerts for whatever reason about a specific car. And if I do get an alert about this specific car, it actually automatically changes my app to that car. So to be fair, I reduce all the alerts on the car to the minimum, so I don't get too much. But if there's a software update, for example, on a specific car, then my app switches to this one, and the next time I go up to my car and it doesn't unlock automatically, I need to go back in my app and switch to the right car, and then I can go back in. You don't need to do that anymore, which it makes sense, because unless like, so the worst case scenario is if you have all your cars at the same place and you walk up to them and then all of them unlocks at the same time. But like, how big of a problem that is really, uh, I wouldn't I wouldn't be able to tell you. But yeah, that's a big change. What else? Streamlined summon experience. I haven't tried that yet, to be honest. Summon is not a big feature for me. I know you use it a little bit more because your garage is kind of tight.
Yeah,
You
I wouldn't say a lot, but
uh,
I haven't tried it with the new app yet.
mhm.
So
And yes, all the shopping experience now inside the app, including the Tesla like accessory shop, it's in there too. All right. Other thing I want to talk about is Tesla is making some interesting moves into the energy space, and we kind of touch it a little bit with the new app. But we reported a lot lately on Tesla making move on the retail electricity market, which, other than selling solar energy system at the residential level, Tesla hasn't really entered that as a like a regular electric utility like it's doing now. But the we've seen it in the UK with their partnership with the uh, Octopus Energy, I think they call. They give you the Tesla energy plan that it's called. So you get fixed a rate per kilowatt hour for all your needs at your house. It can include a power wall, it can include solar, it can include also a charger, vehicle charging, and so basically Tesla is starting to own the entire electricity experience, from producing it, selling it to customers, and consuming it inside your a vehicle, like an electric vehicle, your Tesla vehicles. So we've seen that happening in the UK. There's also the virtual power plant that is pretty much like that, since even though Tesla doesn't generate necessarily the electricity that goes into your power wall, it can sell the electricity that goes out of it, and money there's money to be made if you have a different rate with peak power output and all that stuff. And now in Texas, which Texas has a very particular energy market, extremely deregulated compared to the rest of the U.S. and the rest of the world, really. And it had its issues this year, with especially in February when there was a lot of winter storms and extremely cold temperature for the Texan climate, and it was brutal. I mean, the grid went down for days in some places. Over 100 people died. A lot of them from carbon monoxide poisoning, which was kind of crazy. Like the people would start their car inside their garage and things like that. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And yeah, the grid itself was criticized for it. Like even though there were extreme temperatures, it should have been able to handle it. But the fact that it's extremely deregulated, that there's a ton of players. I mean, that's like the Texas free market. Like that's like the big tick in Texas. And I mean, I find it interesting because I'm not against it in principle, but you look everywhere else, and the electricity market are extremely close to either monopolies or oligopoly, or
I
what was
mean,
the other one?
duopolies or
I think it's ogly, something like that. I might be
oligopoly?
mistaken. Yeah, something like that. About like just a few different companies hold an entire market together. That's generally the case for electric utilities. I mean, here in Quebec, it's a complete monopoly, and it's actually government run because Hydro Quebec is the only electricity provider in Quebec, and it's owned by the government, so it's owned by the people. Um, but in other market, if you go to California, for example, there's like three big electric utilities. But there's more than that too. There's like local one in Los Angeles and things like that. But for the most part, it's like three big ones. In Texas, there's 120 of them, over 120 of them, and some better than others. And with what happened earlier this year, a lot of them like fell to like went bankrupt and lost tons of money. The cost of the winter storm last year was put at over $10 billion, that the state had to cover because a lot of those companies went bankrupt. And yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah.
But what it did though, it turned a lot of people to energy storage, because that's the solution to your grid lacking stability and lacking a robustness. It's having your own energy storage capacity at your house. Even better if you have your own solar energy generation with solar panels. But yeah, the main thing was the energy storage market, which Tesla already dominates with the Powerwall. Of course, there's some issues with Powerwall production right now in terms of battery capacity, and even chip shortage is affecting Powerwall production. So there's limitation on there, but on the demand side, it went through the roof in Texas because of the situation. And now Tesla is looking to take it a step further, and they actually want to become a full-fledged electricity retailer in Texas. So Texas Monthly revealed that this week through an official filing that Tesla made with the Public Utility Commissions of Texas, and they stated that they have this new Tesla Energy Ventures business that they filed in the state, and earlier this month they filed with the Utility Commission to become a retailer. It's not exactly clear what form that will take. The most likely outcome is Tesla will create another sort of virtual power plant like they're doing right now in California and a few other markets, where they will combine all their power walls, all the solar generation that is decentralized on everyone's rooftop, and use that power collectively to provide grid services through the broader Texas grid that is managed by a nonprofit entity that deals with all those 120 plus players in there. So Tesla would become a new one that's gonna um, have basically decentralized, for the most part, decentralized energy assets. But what we learned through the filing too is that Tesla plans to also have giant battery system like they do in other markets to provide services. We previously learned from one that's planned in near Houston, and that was a 100 megawatt one. But a new one that was revealed to the filing is at the Gigafactory Texas. Tesla planned a 250 megawatt system Not clear what's the energy capacity of it, but if the power capacity is 250 megawatts, this is a big system. Could
Yeah.
even be like a gigawatt hour system. I don't know. I don't know if it's not in the filing or if it's just I didn't see the original filing. I had to rely on local reporting from Texas Monthly. Well, yeah, this is a big deal. Like Tesla is looking to enter the energy market in Texas in a big way, and it's an interesting one because again, the market is extremely deregulated, so things can move fast. Of course, there's still a limitation. I think it's going to be Powerwall production because I'm fairly convinced that Tesla can sell every Powerwall that they can produce in Texas alone. It's going to be interesting. Still in the same vein, there was another report because we talked about the UK, talked about California, talked about Texas, but another place where Tesla is becoming an energy retailer is in Germany. In South Germany, Tesla also have their energy plan there to have specific electricity rates. And Germany is another interesting market because Germany electricity rates are pretty high. Again, depending on the market, so it's a big country. But in South Germany, Tesla has entered the market the same way that we just described. And Indelsblatt had a report on it where they interview a bunch of other electric utility executive there, and they were quite honest. Again, anonymously about the impact that they think that Tesla's going to have on the market. They are taking the company extremely seriously. Of course, they just invested several $billion in Gigafactory Berlin. Like they are pretty serious about the German market, but they were especially impressed by the Autobidder software that Tesla has. That it's kind of an underdog on the energy market, where we previously discussed. It's one of the Tesla's application of AI outside of self driving, and it's basically creates some kind of platform where you can control all your energy assets, the mega packs, power wall that you have on a certain market, and then you use machine learning to optimize the monetization of those assets by offering grid services and selling the energy from those assets to, I mean, mainly the grid, I would assume, or depending on the market. Like for example, Texas, it's the, what do you call it, ERCOT, I think, something like that. That's the acronym for the entity that manages the grid there. But yeah, it's a very important tool, and Tesla manages its own energy assets on it, but it also provides it for other company that owns batteries, and a lot of them own Tesla batteries. For the best example is, of course, the big Tesla battery, they call it in South Australia, that is owned by Neoen, which is a French company, but they manage it through the Autobidder. Apparently, that's what Tesla says. But it was interesting to get some frank comments from power utility companies that were like, "Yeah, yeah, this is going to be a big deal for us."
That's
Like,
good.
yeah, because they don't get a lot of competitions. Like, like it's
No.
not. I mean, Texas apparently they do. Like, they try to get in each other territory, but like you go in California and it's either like Edison's or Southern something. What's the name? Southern Edison's, I think, or Pacific. Like they all have those names.
Right. It's all Edison.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the Model Y. The first deliveries started in Europe this week. This is from the Dormuth. Not great. When I need to get better at the German name since we're going there. Going there on Saturday, but those are of course made in China. Model Y vehicles that arrive on the market. We reported last week that there were 8,000 of them that were shipped last month, and they arrive over the last 2 weeks, and now they're getting delivered already. So this is kind of a compromise basically from Tesla, because of course Tesla was supposed to start Model Y production at Gigafactory Berlin in July. It didn't happen. The new goal is October apparently. Whether that Tesla can achieve that is unknown. It's not only up to them; they also need to still have the government approval. And now in the meantime, they decided to ship them from Shanghai, was um, overproducing really. Like I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily overproducing, but they definitely got there a lot faster than anyone would think, and got there a lot faster than Berlin, though they had a head start obviously. But the ramp up specifically is quite impressive for Tesla in Shanghai, and now they have the new Model Y there. So I don't know how people are seeing it there in Europe. Like if they would prefer like to wait for the European made Model Y, or they okay with, well, obviously some of them are okay with the made in China, and I
That guy
don't think,
is.
yeah, that guy seems to. Well, I mean, that guy was apparently the very first Model Y
Yeah.
owner in Europe, so good for him. But yeah, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the made in China Model Y, but I'm just saying that the new Model Y in Berlin was supposed to come with significant improvements with
Right.
the structural battery pack, the 4680 cells. Even though at the last earning report, Elon kind of hinted that at least they have a contingent plan if the 4680 and the structural battery pack aren't ready, they're gonna produce the new Model Y with 2170 cells, which would be kind of disappointing because the
Yeah, I
that
feel like this is a change of plan. Weren't they? Didn't they say that the only Model Ys in Europe were going to come from the Berlin factory?
yeah, that was the original plan. Yeah,
Yeah, so they changed. Also, there was supposed to be a paint shop from the for the Model Y that was going to be
that's
next
right.
level.
So the new Model Y, the European made Model Y, was supposed to come with more paint option and have even better paint too, because of like the highest like state of the art paint shop in the world. Um, they have these shirts. They made these shirts with the Model Y launch in Europe. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't know if they are on the Tesla shop yet, but that's quite an aggressive Y on your shirt there.
It's almost like a propeller, like a wind turbine,
Almost, yeah.
almost.
Yeah, still on the Model Y, but now the rear-wheel drive standard range version. While the long range version launched in Europe, in China they started delivering the rear-wheel drive standard range version, which come with LFP battery cells, and just like the standard range Model 3, and now they're already starting delivery. That's actually early for again. Shanghai is extremely impressive, but they were talking about the September for the first deliveries, so now they beat that by a few weeks. So good for them. And then now there's a lot to be said about the standard range Model Y, because it might be coming to us. It might be coming to other market. Tesla has like launched it briefly for us earlier this year, and then took it back. The but the well They said that they didn't like the range. The range was too short, but there was some impressive development with the LFP battery cells. The Model 3, and we're gonna get to that too. Standard range plus has been getting only like very shorter, like just a 10-mile difference with the normal NCM battery chemistry. Yeah, we're gonna. That's the next one. Hey, I'm this week. I'm good with the chronology of my articles that I put
Yeah,
in. So yeah,
good
speaking of
transition.
that, car, so Tesla yesterday sent this email to Model 3 Standard Range Plus buyers in the U.S. It was a few weeks ago. We reported on the fact that Tesla pushed the delivery timeline for new orders all the way to 2022, to January and February 2022. So that's a significant timeline for the car. There were speculation. Is it about the chip shortage? Is it about battery shortage? Is the demand just too strong? We know that the U.S. demand has been very strong this year for Tesla, but really that strong, like a 6-month lead for that car. But yeah, now what happened is that people that did place those order for Model 3 Standard Drain Plus started receiving an email this week. It was all the same email, and the email. I mean, I know I sound like a broken record all the time. This communication is horrible, but this is a pretty good example here. Like you need to know what you're talking about. You need to be at least somewhat connected to the Tesla world to even have an idea of what they're saying here, because it's kind of all over the place. I had so many people send me that email. I was like, what are you even telling me here? Like, I guess I can get my car sooner. It's a European car. Like, what are they saying? So let me just read it to you, like the main part here, so you can understand. We are contacting you about your Model 3 Standard Range Plus, currently estimated for delivery near the end of the year. We'd like to offer you the opportunity to receive your car even sooner due to limited. Well, yeah, by the way, some people that had a 2022 have seen a revised delivery timeline that was in Q4 this year. So that's why they said end of the year and even sooner, because it's not really that soon. Continuing the quote, due to limited supply and strong customer demand, we are introducing the Model 3 Standard Range Plus battery pack. which we already released in Europe and Asia to North America. The battery pack has a range of 253 mile estimate.
So
So
released in Europe and Asia, that seems like it should say Asia and then eventually in Europe, like a few days ago.
well, no, a few days ago was the Model Y. The Model 3 has
Right.
been the made in China Model 3 for
How
standard
long?
range
How long
plus is
has
the
the LFP been in Europe?
months, a few
Okay.
months at least. But I mean, it's what makes no sense is here we are introducing the Model 3 standard range plus battery pack. Like what does that mean? There's already a standard range Model 3 plus in the US,
Yeah.
and it has a battery pack. Like they don't specify the difference with the battery pack at all. And then they say which we already released in Europe and Asia. So if you know about Tesla a bit more, then you understand that they're talking about the LFP battery pack that is now standard for the standard range plus Model 3 in Asia and Europe, and those are made at Gigafactory Shanghai. So knowing that, you could assume that is this a Chinese car? Is it a car that's shipping from China? I wouldn't assume that. I think it's more that Tesla is now getting LFP cells from China and making the pack, or maybe the pack are even made in China, and they are making. I would assume that they're still making the car in Fremont with cells and or battery pack from China with LFP chemistry, and the range will indicate that. So 253, that would be their EPA estimate, and we're gonna have to have a new APA ratings on this though if it has a new battery pack. And 253 would be 10 miles fewer than the current Model 3 standard range plus made in Fremont. But again, this is extremely poor communication. Like there's assumptions that need to be made and everything. Elon confirmed on Twitter later on that it has the LFP battery pack, but I don't think he elaborated on that. Like based on his comment, could still be China, it could still be US, but it has LFP. Though we were discussing it, I think if it has an LFP, I mean, at least the cells have to be from China. I think they are the
Yeah,
only
I
one
think
producing that.
I don't think anybody in the U.S. or
Mm,
even anywhere outside of China
mm,
is producing LFP. I think a
mm,
lot of the patents for LFP batteries until like next year are exclusively Chinese. So
mm.
we know the actual cells are Chinese. We just don't know if the pack itself is where it was made or when they were packed up.
Yeah. And for anyone who don't know, like a quick summary of LFP, or really iron phosphate cells versus the more common NCM and NCA chemistries in lithium ion battery cells, the advantage versus disadvantage. LFP has historically been heavier, so less energy dense at the weight level. So that's not great for electric cars. It's been mostly used like in buses and bigger vehicle like that before, and smaller passenger car where your weight to energy ratio is very important. People went with higher energy density stuff, but there's been a lot of improvement over the last few years, especially from CATL, which supplies the LFP cells to Tesla. They have made improvement on that, um, which get it a lot closer. And there, your example there, 253 miles versus 263 for the current version. There's some advantages where it doesn't, it's not affected as much by battery degradation if you charge to 100%. So Tesla and every other automakers recommends not to charge your car to 100%, to keep it to 80, 90, which is not a problem for your day-to-day driving. But if you want long distance travel and you charge it to 100%, you want to limit that as much as possible. That's not as big of a concern for LFP. So whether depending on how you use your car, that could be an advantage to you or not. There's an advantage on safety to a degree, but of course with other chemistries, though, automakers try to mitigate that at the module or at the pack level to make it safer. But at the cell itself, it's easier to make it safer than another chemistry. Like if you get punctured or something, if the cell itself get punctured, it's the thermal runaway event is a lot less drastic than any other cells. It just doesn't go as crazy with the like fireworks.
So there's two questions in the comments. We'll get ahead of ourselves here, but uh, Luke Miller says, "Is it true that there are complaints in China about Model 3 LFP cold weather performance? Have you heard anything about that?"
Yeah, there have been some complaints early on about it, and I would assume that it's linked to the timing because it
Right.
was first released in the winter. When it arrived in Europe, it was like later on in the winter, and there were some tests that was achieved because, of course, we're more connected to the European market than we are in China, and there was a noticeable performance issue, but it's not drastic. Um, and yeah, I mean that could definitely be a problem for the North American market, especially like in Canada or the Northeast. Like this might not be ideal.
Yeah. And then one more question: what is the charging speed for the LFP cells? I don't know if it's the
Uh,
same speed as regular.
I would need to see a full charging session, but I think in terms of peak charging, I think it's very similar.
All right.
I don't know about the full charging session though. But yeah, these cars are apparently coming as soon as next month in September. So that would give Tesla the opportunity to deliver some of those cars by the end of this quarter, which is always the goal. Always the goal, but it would also indicate that the bottleneck right now might be more the cells than the chip shortage for Tesla, the Model 3, maybe. We got a new timeline for the full self-driving public release, full self-driving beta public release. The download button, as it's has been known now. So last week, Elon was talking about not being a fan of the 9.2 version in beta release, and but saying that he was testing himself the 9.3 version, and he was very liking it. So uh, and prior to that, he had linked the wider release to a 9.2 release, having then a 9.3 testing that, then maybe a 9.4, and then switching to version 10 for the wider release. And he said in about a month, and that was a few weeks ago though. Now what he's saying is that it sounds like they're going to skip the whole 9.3, 9.4, and what he previously referred to as 9.3 would become the version 10 already, which he says going to get to the early access fleet next Friday. So next Friday, the early access program should get version 10 of Tesla's FSD beta software. And from that point, he says about 4 weeks for the public release. Again, take a all what I just said with a grain of salt because he's been wrong plenty of time with that. We were just discussing earlier his comment about Elon being extremely surprised if the FSD button comes after June, which was 2 months ago.
No, that was May, I think.
He said May for like one release, but he said the June would be like if the FSD button download button
Oh,
comes
right.
after
That
June,
was a different tweet.
he would be surprised. All
See the
right,
surprise.
Nürburgring, Germany, a lot of Germany stuff this week. Gonna be even more next week probably since we're gonna be there. But yes, Tesla has been talking a lot about bringing back the Model S Plaid to Nürburgring after the was in 2019 where the coincidentally or not, probably not, when Porsche released the Taycan, they um they started testing in on the Nürburgring racetrack and achieving some good time. And Elon sort of saw it as a little bit of a competition, and he brought his own Model S Plaid prototype at the time. That was 2019, and the car was supposed to come out at the end of that year, I think, or the next year. I don't remember the exact timing. It just, but it was pushed as we now know. And they were achieving some good times there, a 7 minute lap. And of course, Nürburgring, if you're not familiar with it, is a traitorish racetrack. Is extremely difficult. It's kind of a proving ground in Europe. Like if you can achieve a good time on it, you have a good track car. And now finally they're testing it again with the production version, or at least a production version, not necessarily stock. Of course, Tesla's been known to make like racetrack improvement on the cars, but based on at least the production powertrain that is already on the market. Tesla's been delivering the car for a few months now, but Dale Lomas is an expert of the Nürburgring track. He's always watching the track and everything, and he reported that Tesla was testing the vehicle this week and actually had an accident with the car. So apparently, the prototype, or not necessarily a prototype, but the Model S Plaid impacted a barrier at the Turtle sector. So it's apparently a very difficult part of the track, and it hit the barrier. Apparently, the driver wasn't injured, but they noted the way that it came out. The news came out. It was because Corvette with their ZOX prototype was trying to achieve a new lap record with the car, and both the Model S accident and also BMW M8 test mule crashed on the track, and it screwed their the lap record attempt for the Corvette.
So, do we know if there was a steering wheel or a
No, we don't know apparently. I'm sure we're gonna know a lot more about it soon. I'm sure if Tesla has a vehicle there, they probably have more than one, and they're probably gonna release some promotional image or even some actual lap time soon.
I mean, they changed the yoke before. Do you think they would change it for this, or do you think that like Tesla wants to get
Well,
a record with the yoke?
yeah, since Elon did say that he did say that Tesla is not going to offer an option, a non-yoke option, a fully round steering wheel option. I would assume that now they kind of have to stick to the yoke to for
Right.
any kind of demonstration or anything like that.
Yeah.
It would make sense. But yeah, I mean the yoke, like everybody agree with it. In low speed, it's far from ideal. Like it's not as good as a round steering wheel. Sorry, for high speed though, this doesn't change anything. Like it's perfectly fine. All right. Okay, this is a very interesting one this week that came out. So in was it in April? In March. So in March of this year, there was a fire in Dallas that a big fire that the whole city saw, um, and there was a few media report on it locally, and they blamed the Tesla vehicle that exploded on. They said that's what might have started the fire because a Tesla Model Y, a brand new Tesla Model Y, was involved in the fire. I mean, it got burned, but there was an explosion that happened, but the media said that the Model Y exploded, which it clearly didn't, and the kind of, I mean, in some case, just insinuated, and in another case, straight up said it that the Tesla vehicle was the cause of the fire. But interestingly, someone bought the salvage vehicle. Green, of course, famous Teslaker, friend of Electrek. Green, it wasn't him that bought the vehicle, but he knows the person that bought the salvage vehicle. The person, that's what they do. They dismantle salvage vehicle, and they managed. They look in the glove box and they found the drive. The USB drive was still there. It wasn't intact. I have a picture of it here. It wasn't intact. It was pretty banged up, but it actually still had the files on it. So they took the files from it, and you could clearly see from the video that the the smoke, the fire is coming out of the house of. Or well, it's not a house. I think it's an apartment building, but the fire comes from the apartment building, and then reaches to the car from the apartment building. And another angle here, you can actually see that the car is plugged in, and the owner, or the owner of the car at least, is inside the vehicle, and
Right. That's
then
what's weird because that seems kind of sketchy. Like, why would she be in the vehicle watching the fire?
well, I think she, like you see, like, so the timing of it is not the same here. So now you see the smoke coming out of the house is on this side here, and the owner is like is coming out, and like they just figure it out now, and they're like, oh, I need to get the hell away from here. But technically, like, the car was plugged in, but technically she should have been able to unplug the car and get away from it, and the car would have been fine. But you see, she. I mean, I'm not blaming her, of course. Like you kind of panic when, when there's a fire like that happening. So she ran the furthest away that she could, and I think she's on the phone right now calling the emergency services. But yeah, I mean, look, if you have an electric car fire, you most likely the battery pack is the problem. And look at the battery pack here. The battery pack clearly didn't catch on fire. There was some this I think it's more like issues with what they use to extinguish the fire, but the pack itself is fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. So Tesla kind of got vindicated by its own Sentry mode after someone bought the salvage car. So it's kind of interesting outcome here.
I wonder if that was that USB key metal. Would that have did that save the data? It looked kind of like a
Yeah, it
metal
looks like
one.
the outside is kind of metalish. Yeah,
I wonder
I
if
don't
that's
I
going
don't
to
have
be.
one.
What if that's going to be like upgrade that people want, like a black box for your data.
I thought it was interesting though that anyone could. Well, I mean, it's kind of on the owner to not remove it before like it gets to the insurance company and salvage and everything, but that anyone can just grab that key and like watch all your videos of Sentry mode or dash cam on it. I mentioned that to Green, and Green, of course, is well known for like finding new features before they release in the software. And he said that he did see indication that Tesla is working on encrypting those files. So there's going to be a way to encrypt them and only have like a password to be able to see them, which I think makes sense in terms of privacy issues. Oh yeah, this one I got a little bit excited about selfishly because I own an early Model S, but John Carmack, who's of course a famous computer scientist, mostly famous for video game development. He founded ID Software that created the engine, the first really 3D graphic engines for video games in the 90s. He was behind the video games like Doom and Quake, which if you're familiar with the video game industry, without those games you don't have the Call of Duties and Halo and all that stuff. Like he was very instrumental in making that happen. And more recently, it was mostly known for Oculus, where he was the CTO for Oculus for a long time. And more recently, decided to leave Oculus, or at least leave his day-to-day responsibility Oculus to focus on general AI. He's big on general artificial intelligence, um, which kind of interesting timing with Tesla AI Day happening. And now John Carmack, this week he was asked on Twitter. He's a big Twitter user like Elon, maybe not as much as Elon. He was asked on it if he would do a video game or video game engine, especially for Tesla vehicles, because we know that Tesla is big on video games inside their cars. And he didn't answer the question, but he did offer a completely other comment that's very interesting. He said, I did kind of volunteer to help them fix what I consider very poor user interface performance on older Model S that I drive. He owns a Model S. Their engineer have been sharing data with me. So what he's saying is that Tesla is directly working with him in order to improve the user interface on the older Model S here. So, and this if someone can help on that front, that it's John Carmack, because if you think about him, the guy that's been his whole thing for a long time, like to get great performance out of subpar or at least common hardware. Like
Right.
he managed to get Quake and Doom running on personal computers in the 90s, very very early on. Get some, I mean, great graphic for the time
Right.
on there. And then more recently, I mean, that's the success of Oculus has been with the Oculus Quest, the standalone headset. So I shouldn't say all, but most of the other VR headset all relied on a very powerful gaming computer that you connect the headset to run things. When Facebook's Oculus became very popular is when they managed to have a standalone handset that could run significant games, and you don't need any other computer interface or anything like that. You just put the headset on and it works. So to have a whole computer capable of running high performance games all in a little headset, it's all about managing your compute power and everything like that. So Carmack is an expert at that stuff. So this is very interesting. You could really improve the performance of older vehicles that have the old MCU, which is kind of getting dated.
My question though is like, how come he's got an old Tesla? Like, I feel like he should have enough money to upgrade
I
here.
think he likes to play with older stuff. Like
Uh,
he had this whole Ferrari that he had for a long time that he just kept modding himself and stuff like that. So maybe he's doing the same with his Tesla. I don't know, but he's an interesting character. Like if you ever, I'm very big on VR, and I like to watch. I mean, I probably won't do it anymore, but at the big Oculus event every year, he had the big technical presentation where he goes deep into like what's happening, where are the limitation of VR right now, and what we're doing to push it further. And it's always super exciting. He's great as like explaining the technical stuff, but also like familiarizing for the peasants like us. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because also Elon has been trying to get Carmack to work for him for a long time,
Right.
and not necessarily at Tesla. That's what's the interesting part too. Like now he's literally like working with Tesla on this. But Carmack, in the early 2000s, he developed a big interest on rocketry, and he became like an amateur rocket scientist, like launching his own tiny rockets. And then he created his own company with that, Armadillo Aerospace. And he won a bunch of competition with that company, like a Google X competition for a lunar lander and all that stuff. Like he did some very great stuff at Armadillo for a while until he paused it and moved to Oculus. But Elon, of course, has his own very significant interest in rocketry, and he tried to get Carmack to come work with him at SpaceX, but he never took the opportunity. And now, what I like the timing of like, no, now I was working on this Tesla stuff with this engineers, and at the same time there was the Tesla AI day happening, and we know that Carmack has a big interest on artificial intelligence, so maybe something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
That would be like a giant news if Tesla is able to land Carmack. I mean, we don't have a CTO at Tesla right now, though. I would argue that Drew Baglino would deserve the CTO position at Tesla more than anyone else. Guy has been there forever and has made some credible contribution to Tesla. So, but still, all right. We got some U.S. sales number for electric vehicles for the first half of 2021. So some interesting data here. Of course, Tesla is still the big leader, but it's eroding a little bit. Their market share is eroding. It's still, I mean, they're still responsible for the majority of the of the sales this year in the country. 66% of the EV market in the U.S. of the first half of 2021 is Tesla, compared to 79% for the whole year last year. Uh, and 2020, like I know people were like, it's you shouldn't really compare things with 2020 because of what happened last year with the pandemic. But in terms of electric vehicle, it's still a decent point of comparison because electric vehicle sales still grew last year versus the prior year, while gasoline car sales went down versus the prior year for obvious reasons. But yeah, Experian is out with the new registration data saying that this year during the first half, 214,000 electric vehicles were sold in the country versus 98,000 last year. So more than double. And again, 66% of the market is still Tesla vehicle. GM comes distant second at 9.6%. And Ford is now creeping up at third position with 5.2% thanks to the Mach E. And I mean, it goes to show like just how like just a few vehicle can change the whole market here, because like 66% is Tesla right now, and 66% is Model 3 and Model Y, because of course Model S and S were in existence this year until June,
And
and
barely.
yeah, barely in June and barely in January, so like they don't have much of an impact. So it's Model 3 and Model Y, 66%, like let's say 60% of the market. And then Chevy both EV and 9.6%, even though like it also has its own limitation. There's the fire controversy, of course, but even before that, like we know that the Bolt EV is on. It's at the end of the program, really. Like GM is focusing on the Ultium now and everything. So
Right.
and we so with that, with those 214,000 car, it's the equivalent of 2.5% of the U.S. market. So obviously, kind of
Still small, but growing.
yeah, small but growing. But we also, again, one new car enter the market, and it's a game changer. Like I think there's a lot of things that's gonna change the market in the US in the coming months. VW with the ID4 local production, I think, is going to be a
Yeah.
big deal, because I mean, you see now they're not in the top three, but even though the ID4 is being delivered, but it's being delivered in extremely low volume from whatever they can spare from the European market coming to the US.
I have
The,
seen a few out and about though. It's weird
yeah, you have.
because yeah, it's weird because they look a little bit like a normal Volkswagen, but they have the front end that's very unique, and you don't expect them because they haven't been
Mm.
around.
Oh no.
And I think I've seen more VWs than even Mustang Mach-E's.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, the ID4 is not available in Canada just yet, but the Mac keys I've seen here a lot, really, which is kind of surprising because they're not cheap
Right.
in Canadian dollars. So yeah, I mean, VW ID4 local production is going to be a big deal. The the US is, I mean, because of it, pickup trucks are just so important here. Like they are literally the majority of the passenger car market. It's insane. You need electric options in this segment to really make a difference. And so this is going to be a big deal with Rivian finally starting delivery soon, and then next year is going to be the bigger deal with the F-150 Lightning. But we're gonna get into that right now. So Rivian sent out an update last weekend to the reservation holders, just a letter from RJ Scaringe, the CEO, basically giving an update on a bunch of different part of the business. Of course, production is the most important right now because the deliveries were supposed to start in July. They didn't. The production has been delayed to September. But now it sounds like everything is in place. It's going to happen because in the letter, RJ explained that the latest pre-production vehicles that they built at the factory meet all their quality standards. And we this is encouraging because we know like they've been very thorough in their testing of the vehicle. We've seen them for years out there, and in recent months we've seen a lot of test vehicle out there. So it sounds like they got it dialed in, and now the vehicles that are coming out of the factories are customer ready. So they said that at this point it's about government approval. So they need the authorization, the green light from the EPA and NHTSA, and once they have that, they can start delivering the vehicles. Really, so it does sound like the September timeline is becoming extremely likely at this point. So this is great news. Of course, the fact that they are now producing vehicles that are customer ready in terms of quality uh, doesn't mean much in terms of volume. The volume is the ramp up is going to be the important thing to track after that. But first deliveries are coming in September. It sounds like. Of course, now if you start your customer deliveries, then you need to have the infrastructure around it too. That's very important, and that will probably tell you where the first deliveries are going to go to. Because RJ mentioned that Rivian has now 5 service centers up and running in the U.S. One in Brooklyn, New York, one in Bellevue, Washington, one in Normal, Illinois, one in San Francisco, California, one in El Segundo, California. El Segundo, that's in the LA area, right? Los Angeles area. Right?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
right by the airport.
oh yeah, you're right. So they have a lot of big markets covered, and they're gonna go like the Tesla way. They're gonna go with mobile service too. So they use the same van that they produce for Amazon, and they fit that for mobile service. So they're gonna be able to cover more area. But for now, I would assume that the deliveries are gonna be for those areas to start with. But the goal is to have over 100 service center open by the end of 2023. So this is kind of a midterm goal. We're gonna probably see a lot more coming out, and they're also talking about their charging network. You're gonna see more stations soon. We've previously reported on their plans on that. They're gonna have a lot more coming, and they said that the Rivian mobile app is coming in early September too. So we can expect a very similar experience as you have on the Tesla app with Rivian. Still with the electric pickup truck, Ford, we got some information about the planned production capacity. That's something we didn't have a lot of details about. We've heard rumbling about 80,000 units a year, but nothing confirmed. Now, Reuters came out with a report this week stating that the plan now is to ramp up to 15,000 vehicles in 2022, 55,000 in 2023, and 80,000 in 2024. But then so this is the first generation is going to be 2022, 2023, 2024. 80,000 was what we heard before, but that's planned for 2024. So of course there's always a ramp up. And then they say that the second generation coming in 2025, they're going to be aiming for a higher volume of 160,000. So this is probably about what I was expecting, to be honest. It's not a lot.
Oh,
It's not a lot compared to the gas powered F-150 where they sell million of those a year. So
yeah.
when you compare it to that, it's not a lot, but it's a start. And it's decent. Like if 50,000 doesn't sound a lot, but this is again the very first year of production. Ford hasn't. I don't think Ford said when it's coming out next year. And if they don't say that, I would always assume towards the end of the year. I think that's the safe assumption. So even 15,000 next year, it's not bad. Like people, I want the Tesla fan out there to be ready. Like this might be more than the Cybertruck next year. Like I wouldn't be surprised by that at all if
Yeah.
there's more F-150 Lightning delivered than the Cybertruck. Where I would put my money on, though, is a faster ramp up from Tesla than from Ford. Not that this is necessarily a bad ramp up, 15,000 to 55,000 the next year, but I mean, if they start production late in 2022, then it doesn't look like a great ramp up. And then 80,000 in 2024. Like
I mean,
in
they're basically
2020,
doubling. You know, not exactly, but like doubling at 15, 55, 80,
yeah.
160.
But like what I'm saying is like if they start production in late 2022 and they deliver 15,000, then the whole year of 2023 at 55, it doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, then 80,000 in 2024. That's one point. Like at 2024 though, then I would think Tesla could probably double that at that point, because like we know that when Tesla is going for a high volume production, they don't joke around.
Yeah, and basically they have a whole factory just for making Cybertruck in Texas.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Although one other point about that, it's kind of crazy that Ford has basically sold out all of its. They've already got over 120,000 reservations. So they've
Hmm.
sold out 2022, sold out 2023, and almost sold out 2024 reservation wise.
Yeah.
I feel like even these numbers, like they could probably
Did they did
sell
they
everyone
just
that.
open a reservation to the US though?
Uh, I don't know.
So I don't know if it's globally or not.
I mean,
But yeah, that's it.
they're
But
gonna sell everything they make
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
U.S.
Also, the reservation, I think there was just $100 deposit, so some of those will fall through for
Right.
sure. But yeah, I mean, it's about what I was expecting. But like, my goal is to at least like by 2025, I would like to at least see in the US a production capacity of over 500,000 pickup truck per years. Because because otherwise the pickup market is going to get a big hit in the US. I think. So here in this case, it sounds like Ford could have like 160,000 capacity in 2025, and then Tesla is probably going to have in the 200,000 plus capacity. And GM with the Silverado electric could have a decent capacity too. So yeah, I think it's very, very plausible that we have over 500,000 electric pickup truck production capacity a year. And then you're going to see that sales of gasoline powered pickup truck just crash at that point, in my opinion. All right, lastly, so last piece of news before we get into the comments and the questions. So get your questions ready in there. I see we have a few, but if you can do the all caps for the question, that could be very helpful. Thank you. Lucid came out this week with an announcement for their Dream Editions buyers. So Lucid is also trying to deliver their first car by the end of the year, and the first edition version was the Air Dream Editions, and this car was going to be like the top of the line version of the Air with over 1,000 HP, with over 500 miles of range. Now they changed a little bit their plans, not too much to be fair, but they kind of readjusted a little bit where they're going to offer two different Dream Editions. There's going to be the Dream Edition Performance that's going to have over 1,000 HP of power, and then there's going to have the Dream Edition Range, which is going to have the over 500 miles of range. So they didn't say the range of what's going to be the range of the performance version, but I would assume it's going to be lower than 500 miles, probably not by a lot. And the range edition is going to have over 500 miles. They didn't say an exact APA. All they said is that they had a test drive with Motor Trend recently with new prototypes, and the two prototypes achieved 475 and 517, which 517 was actually what they were aiming for before. So, but that doesn't really mean that's going to be what the EPA is going to come up with those numbers. So I wouldn't focus too much on that. But in terms of the other specs, it's extremely similar. Like I said, like the two versions are they don't change that much. The main difference really is the wheels. That's gonna be changing your range here. So the performance version comes standard with a 21-inch wheels, while the range version comes standard with a 19-inch. But you can switch those out too. You can get the 21 and the 19 for the other. Um, and again, over 1,000 HP for the performance version and 933 for the range version, which result in a 0 to 60 of 2.5 versus 2.7. So really very close in terms of specs. The big difference is again range versus a tiny bit more range, or a tiny bit more performance. But again, the range is going to be affected by your wheels too. So always keep that in mind. and still trying to deliver by the end of the year. They showed up those new badges here. So you have the P for the performance version. So it shows that the Air Dream Edition P performance, and same thing but with the R for the range version. So pretty cool badges here. Uh, I'm a fan of the big fan of the design language of Lucid. I think it's a solid design language. And they also, like Rivian recently, have been sharing updates in terms of their factory production ready, which in their case is in Arizona, and they seem confident for delivery by the end of the year. The Dream Edition is only about 500 deliveries. I think they're aiming for. So let's look out for that. All right, should we get into the questions?
Yep. All right. So we talked about the Model 3 LFP cold weather performance. So let's talk about the phone app. Dan Oberst asked, does the phone app now work in place of the fob for older Model S and X's?
I mean,
It
did it
did before,
always did?
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Unless I'm mistaken, I thought it always did. To be fair, I don't use my Model S that much these days, so I will have to ask my parents. But I think they use the FOB, to be honest. Though they also have the app.
All right. Almost 2022. Where it's at? So that could apply to many things. I wonder.
Probably when we're talking about the
The
FSD, I
button.
would assume.
Yeah. We'll see. Let's see. Charging speed for the LFP, we talked about that.
Mhm.
I was hoping the new app update would have an Apple Watch app. Any word about an Apple Watch app? Well, there's
No.
some third-party
Hmm.
Apple Watch apps. You can sign in and do things like unlock and lock. But yeah, makes sense. I don't know why Tesla hasn't done that yet. I imagine they're thinking about something like that. All right, moving right along. Which feature would you like to see in a Tesla app? How about a watch component? I don't know. What else? What else would
Yeah,
be
it's a
nice?
good question. I don't know, to be honest. Like Tesla app is one of the most used app on my phone for sure already. So they're doing pretty good, and I'm supposed to get a power wall soon on my new place.
That'll be
So
good.
I would even use it more, I guess. 'Cause, I'm big on like checking those things all the time. Like I'm just how much energy I'm producing and things like that. That's just it's fun to me. Like yeah, I'm a data nerd on that front. Um, but yeah, I cannot think of anything like that right
It would be
now.
nice. I mean, this isn't really app specific, but it would be nice if you had like profiles. Like my wife and I share two Teslas, and when I get into basically what's her car, the Model Y, I have to I have to adjust the music and the stuff like that. Obviously, I can do the
But
drop down
doesn't the
menu to adjust.
car at least detect when you get in versus she get in? So for like the driver profile doesn't change?
No, it's just like a drop down. I mean,
Okay, I thought
maybe it should, but we
yeah,
just
I
do the
thought it
drop down.
detected that already.
So I don't know what else. What else could be?
Hmm. Last month I just had for the first time let my girlfriend out of her home driver profile in my
Oh
car.
wow, that's
Yeah,
serious.
big
That's like
step.
yeah, big step.
Yeah.
Oh, I actually know of something I would really like. I would like to remotely be able to see out of the cameras
Oh
inside.
yeah, I thought that could be coming too. When like because you have the new security is that yeah? You have
Yeah,
a new security toggle on the app where you can activate surveillance with the Sentry Mobile. You could actually already do that, but now it's in like a different security section of the app. I thought it would be cool. You just click on it and you can actually see the cameras. That's a good point.
we should have our 9 to 5 Mac guys tear that thing apart, see if there's anything
Mm-hmm.
fun in there. I forgot to ask them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Rumor Fremont built cattle LPSR with 195 EPA range. I don't think that's credible. That's pretty much
Yeah,
it for today.
I mean, yeah, that's I wouldn't like the if the new Model 3 if the Model 3 standard range plus is getting 253, how on earth the Model Y standard range plus on LFP get 295?
This is
So,
interesting. The CTEC CCS adapter is blocked by the latest Tesla firmware. That'd be a
so
pretty
that's the
big hit.
Korean one. That's the Korean adapter that
I think
the
it's Chinese, Korean,
uh,
but yeah, you can buy it for like 300 or 400, and it's supposed to work for 50 kilowatts.
Well, Tesla's supposed to come out with their own, so maybe they're going on an offensive now. You're gonna have to buy ours. Don't buy the third-party one.
Yeah, that's not good
Um,
news for those folks.
yeah, to be fair, that it was already always a risk to buy some of those because when you're not an official adapter, like you're always in the gray area. It's not the best situation, and
Yeah,
especially at first they were selling it for like $1,000. That was a big risk.
right. All right, one last
Mm.
question. I would like the app to adjust charge time and scheduled departure time. Huh. I feel like you can do that, but you know what? You can only do that from the screen, I think.
Yeah, you can do it from the screen for sure. What, I cannot even click on my charging.
Yeah, there is some charging stuff that they could add.
Yeah, I mean the only thing you can do with the charging is set the limit, and that's better. At least you don't even have to go on the charging screen. You just have the toggle right away on it. It's pretty useful. Oh, I actually just increased the charge limit. That's not what I wanted to do. We have one more question, one last one.
Yeah, Daniel Zajic says, will LFP make Tesla more likely to allow bidirectional charging because of less degradation, or would that eat into Powerwall sales? I don't think it's any more likely. I think the regular lithium batteries are fine for bidirectional charging, but
But Tesla already indicated that starting with the Cybertruck, they're gonna move to bidirectional charging. So I think it's safe that that's coming. I think they are like Tesla is. This is one of the few times like Tesla on the market is always on the EV market, always the market leader, always like twisting the arm of the rest in the industry to follow them on your product, like on connectivity products, especially software over the air software updates and stuff like that. But from that bidirectional charging stuff, I think. Hyundai coming out with the Ioniq, making it the big features. Ford with the F-150
yep.
Lightning, making it a big feature. I think now they're like, all right, like we're gonna have to do it. So I think it's coming. Also, it makes more sense with bigger battery pack, and Cybertruck is for sure gonna have a bigger battery pack. So
Yeah, and I do think he's right when he says, would that eat into
mm,
Powerwall sales? I think maybe Tesla would rather sell you a Powerwall than a
yeah.
bidirectional charger, but
Oh, and
that's
a lot of people will want that too. They don't want to use their cars for that for obvious reasons, but I don't think Tesla is worried about Powerwall sales at the moment at all. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everyone, for watching. Thanks a lot for listening on your podcast app. If you can give us a 5-star review on your podcast app, that would be really appreciated. We always that helps the show a lot. And if you're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, and everywhere, you can give us a thumbs up, a like, a follow, all that algorithm loving stuff. And we're gonna see you same place, same times